Chapter 81. Endorsements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Geppetro. Being scared shitless by only a look and a single car. If word got out, then he would for sure become a laughing stock until the day he died. But Xiao Fei completely understood what the car really meant. Alright, get lost already. Yi Qin found it quite hilarious because the guy had no guts at all. Seeing that Yi Qin had no intention to chase this further, Xiao Fei ran off full of gratitude and thankfulness. Why did he become like that? Daodu's eyes were completely filled with doubt and confusion. Big brother Yi didn't even say a thing, yet the arrogant man was already submitting. He's afraid of me recording down his license plate and sending people to trouble him later. Yi Qin replied as he got into the driver's seat. I'm not even close to being that bored. If you meet anything similar in the future, don't talk logic and etiquettes with them. If you really can't handle it, then give me a call. N. Daodu sat on the soft seat, and felt super sweet inside. She had a kind of being protected by a big brother kind of feeling. Before in TV shows and movies, Daodu felt that the girls who kept on yelling, Mr. Perfect, Prince Charming and the likes were simply retarded. But now she felt that, slowly, Yi Qin had become a god in her heart, omnipotent. Daodu lived in an old, easy-to-find, apartment complex, roughly 10 kilometers away. Yi Qin recalled that it was one of the local residential blocks for employees of China's construction bank. Along the way, Yi Qin drove very stably, plus with the great deceleration system, Daodu felt absolutely nothing. Even the blinding headlights from the oncoming cars were diminished until they appeared gentle and comfortable. The comfortable time quickly flew by. Before Daodu even had the chance to recover from the gentle comfort, the familiar housing block had already entered her sights. Having gotten out of the car, Yi Qin, under the lighting of the street lamps, comfortably stretched. Big brother Yi. Then see ya. Daodu carried her shoulder bag, and embarrassingly waved at Yi Qin. Yi Qin also waved back. See ya. When you're about to start broadcasting next week, give me a call, I'll definitely be one of your first listeners. No problem, I'll definitely try my best. Daodu nodded seriously. Daodu didn't linger on at all. When she was just about to turn and enter the complex, she stole a quick glance back. Seeing that Yi Qin was still standing there, she happily waved at him and disappeared inside. Having seen Daodu off, Yi Qin went back into the car, and headed back to the Dragon Creek Beach factory. The feeling Daodu gave Yi Qin was never bad, it was something close to meeting your next-door neighbor. Of course, saying that he was starting to like her was also wrong. There was no way they would like each other with just 3 meetings. The feeling of liking someone, Yi Qin had already experienced it in the 4th grade. Of course, it wasn't possible to keep the feelings for his first love after such a long time. Now it was more of remembering about Su Ningong. If the two still had the chance to meet, then Yi Qin would definitely ask her whether or not she still remembered the love letter by a classmate named Yi Qin. Ha ha ha. When the Lagonda got onto Huanhai Avenue, it was completely devoid of any traffic. Today the totally happy Yi Qin, happily laughed and tightened his hold on the steering wheel. Vroom vroom engine noise unique to the Aston Martin Lagonda immediately exploded across the avenue. The massive G. force produced by the sudden acceleration of the Lagonda had Yi Qin's blood boiling. Now that I've got my hands on a super luxury car, successful career, here I come. Yi Qin yelled as the Lagonda flashed past on the avenue. Let the rest of the world's manufacturers shiver and tremble under the might of the monster factory. Burst out of Zhongyun, towards the nation, then finally across the world, these were Yi Qin's targets, as well as the must-walk road for the factory. Speeding past everything, the Lagonda used only 10 odd minutes before arriving at the Dragon Creek Beach. The speed was completely 4 times faster than his old van. When Yi Qin safely parked the Lagonda inside the warehouse, the lights to the workshop were still burning bright. More than 10 peons were still carrying heavy steel beams with bare hands, then with rare ranked saws, cut apart the steel into all kinds of pieces with just brute strength alone. How many mechanical engineered chair have been completed? Yi Qing asked the nearest master artisan who was precisely drilling holes. Boss, we've finished over 130 of them, but most of them are still lacking the outer foam and leather. Yi Qing did some quick counting, and found that there was enough completed chairs to mail out to every single buyer. Yi Qing decided to learn from those great net businesses, and have the clients write reviews on the chair for some cash rebate. The better the review, the higher the rebate. Estimating the time, the first batch of mechanical engineered chair should have all basically arrived. Yi Qing did use the good luck courier service after all. Yi Qing pulled out his cell phone, and sent a message to all those buyers asking whether or not they've received the chairs yet, and informed them of the chance to win 1888 cash if they wrote a good review. The chairs were a civilian-use tech product. As long as it got sold, it could easily take over the entire nation's high-end ergonomic chair market. Furthermore, the nation's high-end chair market was completely monopolized by American Herman Miller products. If Yi Qing actually kicked Herman Miller products out from the country, then that's for the glory of the nation. It was just that Yi Qing kept on waiting, even till past 10 at night, but still no one replied back. All of those courier slips had already been marked as received, but none of them bothered to reply. If it wasn't for the confidence Yi Qing had in his products, there was no way they would buy this many right off the bat. When it was finally time for Yi Qing to go to bed, there was finally a client who replied. Full Metal Bullet. Ha ha ha, sorry, just finished work. I can't praise the chair in words at all, but this 1888 review money is definitely mine. I'll have one whipped up real soon. Yes, thank you so much. While Yi Qing was replying, he was secretly laughing inside. This guy's seriously confident. Wanting the top prize right off the bat. But do you really think the top prize is so easy to get? If the review isn't good, then you all only get 588. Now that someone replied, Yi Qing was also reassured, and looking forward to reading all the reviews tomorrow. The next morning, Yi Qing woke to the constant alerts from his phone notification. 10+ customers who had received the product all left reviews. Those guys were all like vampires, all staying up later than the other. But without any exceptions, the clients all praised the chairs as a revolution, and all aimed for the top prize. The Hepburn downstairs. 1888 transfer in half an hour please. 8-month Eagle. Aw, only 1888. I swear what I wrote is worth 5888. I eat tomatoes. This is completely for the mechanically engineered chair, don't you dare send me 1888. Arrogant impermanence. Great chair, stingy maker. Tian can tu do. Seeing how tyrannical the chair's functionality is, I'll bear with it. Yi Qing was somewhat stupefied, as the only one who praised him for being generous was Chang Yu. Because Yi Qing gave him 2 more chairs for free, who could not praise him for buy one get 2 free? Yi Qing really didn't know what to say anymore. Forget it, let's send off everything for everyone else. In any case, Yi Qing now could be considered to be a big boss. Personally sending off the products doesn't suit him anymore. He really needed to get an external office in the city to deal with packing up the chairs, sending off the chairs, and other stuff like that. Then, in less than 20 minutes, Yi Qing's cell phone went from only vibrating once for notification, to a never-ending state. Ednel.co, the outstanding iPhone, was completely stuck on all kinds of notification, and as for successful order receipts, it was fixed at a whooping 237. Chapter 82. The explosive popularity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Yi Qing was seriously stupefied. Who knew Apple iPhones could actually crash from just receiving notifications? But Yi Qing saw crystal clear that the total number of order bill notifications was 237. And what does that 237 mean? Total gross income of close to 12 million, and at least 10 million of that was pure profits. As long as Yi Qing was able to send off all the mechanical engineered chairs from those orders, then he definitely had enough funding for a 50-ton furnace, and million-ton presses. But why the hell were these mechanical engineered chairs suddenly selling this much? 50,000 for a single one. That much money was more than enough to buy a low-end sedan. If it wasn't the boss of those white-collar workers, or those high-income IT people, then who could actually afford them? Yi Qing hurriedly rushed to his computer, and got on WeChat. A series of messages and notifications, with a double click from Yi Qing, immediately froze the computer for a good amount of time. Except all of those messages were mostly asking how much of a spokesperson fee did Yi Qing pay. Messages and notifications poured in non-stop. So Yi Qing actually closed his WeChat, logged on to his net store, to see what review was actually able to promote the sale of this many chairs. The first review came from Changyu, which included some very average photos. But his review couldn't be described as normal at all. A short 1,000-word piece of writing described the chair's functionality, to the sky and beyond. It was to the point where after reading this piece of exquisite writing, Yi Qing actually had an urge to buy it. The second review came from 8-Month Eagle. The writing had the same exquisite feeling. In the pictures was a performance comparison with one of his previous Herman Miller ergonomic chairs. Yet by the end of his writing, the Herman Miller chair could be said to be literary trash. It was like the difference between a quartz bell and the bell of the Eastern Emperor. BDNVL.M. Yi Qing let loose his urge, and continued to scroll down. This urge far surpassed his anxiety and his needs when he was waiting for novel updates during high school and university. Having read through them all, Yi Qing was thoroughly served. All of these reviews had their own wonderful style and depictions, and were easily able to brainwash anyone into buying them. Those guys were definitely authors, but if it was just some review then there was no way it would be able to attract hundreds of people over to question. Yi Qing tried a search with their usernames on Weibo. TL, holy shit finally. You dimwit. What took you so long? And finally all the surrounding mist was cleared. These half-celebrity statue internet novel authors, all posted pictures and a short blurb on how they all bought this revolutionary ergonomic chair, which basically could be described as the most divine artifact for all desk workers. Weibo also allowed the posting of GIFs and videos. Those guys, with their bizarre imagination, all according to their needs, programmed out all kinds of strange movement sets. Out of all the videos, 8-Month Eagles was the lowest of them all. Hugging a giant teddy bear, he had the chair from times move up and down, and at times twist like a snake. The replies following were simply massive, almost all of them were asking where he got the chair. Yi Qing was simply k.o.ed by this whole set of events. Although he knew that the mechanical engineered chair would be popular, but he never thought that in just these few days, the sales would actually be like this. Holy shit, Yi Qing gave those wonderful helping clients all $58.88 in cash straight up. Having wired everything over, Yi Qing hurriedly rushed into the workshop and had the PN stop whatever they were doing and immediately start on making more chairs. The outer packaging also immediately required the help of other workers. Making the monsters do that was purely wasting time. Right now time was money. Having finished assigning all the works, Yi Qing immediately jumped into the Lagonda and roared out of the factory. Yi Qing had already had his father look for people who knew how to make sofas, but right now the amount of people recruited clearly wasn't enough. Making a call to his father, Yi Qing told him to contact the hiring office of the industrial park for an urgent need of 10 experienced processing workers. He then made a call to Su Xiaohu to ask him what he was doing right now. Su Xiaohu replied that he was at the driving school. What's more was that he even commented on how there were so many girls here who are all like him, trying to learn how to drive while it was summer break. Forget learning for now, help me out first. Yi Qing immediately told him to stay there and that he would be over in 20 minutes. Su Xiaohu originally stayed over for the summer wanting to work at the factory anyways, so naturally he was happy to hear that there was work for him. Hanging up the call, Su Xiaohu walked over to his instructor to ask for time off, saying that his uncle needed him for something and would be coming over to pick him up. The driving school was loosely structured to begin with, most people who came here were just for the certificate, so the instructors of course would rather have them all skip. Su Xiaohu had a very open personality, well at least towards girls. He was clean and looked very handsome, and was tall. With him there, he immediately gathered the attention of every female in the class, no matter if they actually liked him or not. He was so popular that when a well-off girl learned that he was from out of the province, and was living with his uncle, she bashfully informed him that he can rent one of the rooms from her place. High-end community, 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms, all decorated, a year's rent, was put at 500 by this girl. And naturally of course, every guy in the class were all in the same boat, and completely began to reject Su Xiaohu. Not only was Su Xiaohu good-looking, he also had a nice attitude. The only flaw he had was probably his old and worn clothing. As such, those guys simply used his shabby clothing and family statues as their rage target. Hearing Su Xiaohu say that his uncle was gonna be picking him up, those guys suddenly had another target to release their rage on, saying that Su Xiaohu's uncle didn't have it easy either, such an age and still needed to take care of this youngster. Su Xiaohu dryly smiled and ignored them. Being handsome obviously meant attracting hate from other men. Seeing Su Xiaohu ignoring them, those men were further encouraged, and even included Su Xiaohu's uncle as their regular target. Someone joking said for Su Xiaohu to introduce them some work, to reduce the load on that old uncle of his. Someone also asked Su Xiaohu how his uncle was going to pick him up. Su Xiaohu smiled and said that it would probably be in a minivan. 15 minutes passed before a Lagonda roared past gate of the Golden Horse Driving Academy, and wheeled to a stop in front of everyone. Aston Martin's striking car head, and the engine sounds of a supercar, had everyone in the driving academy question who was the one actually driving it. Yi Qin opened the door and get out, and appeared in everyone's eyes. "Uncle, uncle, I'm here." The handsome Su Xiaohu dashed in front of everyone and waved. Yi Qin waved for him to get in. Yi Qin didn't say a single word, but every pair of eyes were all sucked into him. The confidence of men is often a drug for women. And that flashy, eye-catching Lagonda under the sun, was a drug for both men and women alike. The Lagonda, with a graceful 3-point turn, roared off out of the academy. All that remained in its wake was the rising dust, and the aching sounds of raising anger. What minivan? That was clearly an Aston Martin. Those men all angrily concluded that Su Xiaohu just loved to pretend, wearing those street stall clothing all day long, just to capture the hearts of these shallow women. "Next time we'll all be like you. It's just with their looks, it was useless even if they wore the emperor's robe." Chapter 83. The Screams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Petro. In the car, Su Xiaohu happily asked, "How much did you get this Ford Mondeo for? This car is just too awesome. Sounds just like a supercar and even has such beautiful interior decor." Yi Qin, who was just about to welcome him, was pissed to the point of wanting to smack him silly. "Look, you dimwit, look at the logo on the wheel," Yi Qin angrily stated. "You see the silver-winged English logo? Aston Martin." Su Xiaohu, with an expression full of incomprehension, read and asked, "What brand is this? I've never heard of it." Yi Qin upon hearing this could only submit, saying this was a new Ford Mondeo, costing around 800k. "You got any friends here?" "Of course, I know some beautiful girls from the driving academy as well. Call and ask them if any of them want to do sales marketing, or be a customer service representative. I need 10 in total. If you can't find enough, ask them to bring their sisters. As for pay, 3,000 a month. Then go to the electronic market and get me 20 desktops with i7 CPUs and 16 GBs of RAM. Get a sense of how much it costs online, before you get ripped off over there. Also, gonna need matching sets of office desks and chairs, printers, copiers, and every other necessity for an office. Having finished listing everything, Yi Qing asked for his bank account and immediately wired over 300,000. Holy shit, 300,000. Uncle, you opening a net store? Having received a transfer of 300,000, Su Xiaohu almost threw his phone out the window. God damn it, don't be shocked at whatever you see, alright. If you're like this outside, then there goes all my face. Yi Qing smacked the back of his head. Also get yourself a new iPhone 6s, and a couple sets of professional clothing. Su Xiaohu scratched his head, then pulled out his cell phone, and gave a call to those girls whom he had just met. The hiring of customer service representatives was surprisingly successful. Su Xiaohu only made 3 calls before those girls filled all the spots. And reason was all due to Yi Qing. That Lagonda of his had its price immediately baidu'd out by them. Now upon hearing that Su Xiaohu was looking for people to work for his uncle, they immediately gave up on trying to learn how to drive. Having dropped Su Xiaohu in front of the computer market, Yi Qing raced off towards the downtown area. In recent years, property values had kept on dropping. The buildings in the golden downtown area had many open areas up for rent. Yi Qing only made one visit before the manager treated him as his god of fortune, and offered him an exclusive offer to rent out an entire floor in a super select office building. It used to be the office of an import-export company. Now, the import-export company has become bankrupt, they still left all their decors behind. All Yi Qing needed were some minor tweaks and it would be fully usable again. There was a stand-alone warehouse in the underground parking lot that was also rented out by Yi Qing, to be used as the packaging area for the engineered chairs. Cash money is efficiency. Yi Qing and Su Xiaohu, having busied themselves for a whole afternoon, by 5, had an office with the Monster Heavy Industry logo printed on the doors that was already furnished and in use. 10 young and youthful girls were all sitting in the meeting room listening to a master artisan explaining to them everything they needed to know about the mechanical engineered chair, so that they were actually able to answer some questions when asked. Su Xiaohu was immediately assigned to be the acting manager by Yi Qing, his responsibility. Help Yi Qing take care of everything here, as Yi Qing's main office was still at the Dragon Creek Beach factory. Right now, Yi Qing was hiding behind his president desk, and receiving a wonderful massage from the mechanical engineered chair below him. After a full day of brewing, the entire Weibo was full of professional screenwriters and authors, liking and sharing the creative videos from Yi Qing's first batch of customers. The notifications were still pouring in like there was no tomorrow, so Yi Qing simply stopped trying to respond to all of them. A sudden call headed by a 400 number interrupted Yi Qing's massage session. Answering the call, someone stating himself as Tmall client manager, asked Yi Qing some identification questions, and then welcomed Yi Qing's web store into being a member of Tmall Shopping Center. Tmall was currently the nation's most comprehensive online shopping brand. It was also the only shopping center in the country that all international brands were willing to join. Joining Tmall meant that you would receive the full trademark rights, the ability to completely focus on manufacturing, and completely not have to worry about the problem with fakes. Yi Qing had already applied for the trademark rights through an agency, and even filed for patent protection for the mechanical engineered chair. If someone were to go on the national patent site, then they can easily find it. Right now, Tmall Shopping Center very rarely gave out invites to private stores, but Yi Qing's mechanical engineered chair, just like a black horse, shocked the whole Taobao data monitoring team. Tens of millions in transactions in a single morning. That kind of data wasn't even possible for many of Tmall's existing stores. If it was fake purchases, then it was as simple as sealing the store, but after the data team had examined it multiple times, there wasn't a single fake purchase. Furthermore, the buyers of these mechanically engineered chair were all active VIP users. The purchase power of those users was quite extraordinary. Within the data team were several novel addicts, who from those authors' public Weibo account, found the true reason behind the popularity of these mechanically engineered chairs. When they finished watching the videos, they all came to the conclusion that this many sales was actually normal. If after all this it's still not popular, then something's really wrong with the world. If these kind of black horse stores don't join Tmall, then that was a loss for Tmall, hence the call invite from the Tmall's client manager. After Yi Qing provided his business permit, organization code, trademark registration certificate, inquiry number for the national patent application status, and his bank certificate, his Tmall store was successfully created. However, his Tmall store currently only sold one product. The client manager told Yi Qing to add some individual parts of the chair to the store just to fill up its emptiness. The next day, the web store, as well as the customer relations office, officially entered full service. The 10 customer relations girls, all arrived nice and early for work. Su Xiaohu and the 3 driving academy female classmates, were all together trying to remember all the rules to the trade. 10 customer relation representatives were more than enough to cope with all the incoming calls. When Yi Qing made his rounds, most of the calls from customers were asking whether or not they could get a discount. Yi Qing told the girls to refuse everyone seeking a price cut. Not even a cent less was allowed for our product. But if someone were to write some nice reviews after the purchase, then cash rebates could be considered. The office right now still felt empty, but at least there was the RT Mart supermarket right across the street. Yi Qing headed downstairs and arrived at the main entrance of RT Mart, got some nice fried chicken from the next door KFC, and headed inside while eating. "Big brother, you're not allowed to eat inside." A 12-year-old girl standing beside Yi Qing cutely commented. Beside the little girl was a very normal middle-aged woman, probably her mom. She apologetically smiled at Yi Qing, meaning don't mind the little kid's nonsense. "I'm not gonna take it inside, I'll finish it all outside." Yi Qing wolfed down the rest of the fried chicken, and roughly cleaned up after himself. "Thank you sister for the notice." "N by big brother." The little girl happily took her mom's hand and left. The first floor of RT Mart was filled with stuff like clothing, household appliances, electronics, and toys. Yi Qing was looking for some water dispensers, televisions, microwaves, and other office appliances. There was a big promotion going on at the household appliance sector, 2 workers standing behind a massive, top-of-the-line, high-tech juicer, continuously juicing out watermelons for clients to taste. Yi Qing had seen this juicer before. The juice he and Daodu had the other day was juiced by it. There was also a juicier with its plastic casing removed on the side. The female worker was giving off a sales pitch to the customers who received free juice, saying how there were many different functionalities to this juicer. Apart from juicing, it could also mince meat, and how the highly reflective stainless steel on the inside was not only dishwasher safe, but would also stay rust-free forever. The female worker, while introducing, also taught the customers how to remove the casing of the machine to wash the stainless steel inners. Yi Qing, who worked in the mechanical sector, took a special glance. The circular structure inside was actually made out of reflective stainless steel, and was actually very thick and sturdy. The crushing wheels inside was also very long, unlike those regular juicers with their blades, able to mince meat with no problems. Yi Qing had no use for it, so naturally he left after a quick look. The little girl from before, was also there waiting for the juice and smiled at Yi Qing when she spotted him. Yi Qing left for the water dispensers. Right now he had tons of money to burn, so he straight up picked the most expensive one. A sudden burst of painful screams echoed throughout the entire shopping center. The screams gave Yi Qing quite the shock, but before he could turn around, another wave of screams and cries sounded out, where a specific female scream sounded vividly gruesome. Chapter 84. You are going to be okay. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Not far away from the screams, Yi Qing turned around and found the chaos that was near where the free juice promotion that was happening. On the face of many onlookers were signs of fear and distress. The nearby filers and other male workers, upon hearing the screams, immediately dropped whatever they were doing and rushed over. Yi Qing also quickly rushed over, and tried to squeeze past the blocking crowd. Then as soon as he saw the scene, he clearly felt his heart going up through his throat. The girl who was just telling him to not eat inside, right now was laying down on the display stage in complete pain. Her left hand was caught inside of the juicer that had its plastic casing removed. When Yi Qing was leaving, the product promoter was telling the customers how to clean the stainless steel inners and grinding wheel. Yet, within a minute, how did this happen? Nian Nian, my poor Nian Nian. The girl's mom right now was whirling tears and beside her daughter in complete shock and despair. It's not my fault, it really isn't my fault. That female promoter was also dumbstruck, and completely pale-faced. I only pressed the cleaning button, this girl here just slipped and fell onto the machine. The crowd of onlookers was full of "Holy shit, and it's over now" kind of words. Several of the workers who rushed over, seeing the tragedy, all called out for someone to call 911. There was also another worker who rushed to the home improvement section, and came back with a toolbox to try to crack open the machine. Trickles of blood, following along the grooves of the grinding wheels, flowed out. The little girl, having already forgotten about the pain and shock, was staring at her hand in disbelief. Her mom's despairing cries beside her had her lost on what to do next. She looked around with begging eyes, and saw Yi Qing's heart-aching eyes. "Get out of my way!" Yi Qing violently roared at the people who were trying to get a better view of the accident. The people who were all trying to push forward to get a better look were scared awake by Yi Qing's roar, and they all took a couple steps back. Yi Qing, taking a quick glance at the machine screws, picked up the right screwdriver from the toolbox beside him, and with the worker who brought over the toolbox, began to take the juicer apart. "Quick, someone quickly take a sling or a belt, and keep her arm raised to stop the excessive bleeding." While taking the machine apart, Yi Qing roared. Those who work in the mechanical sector, would all have heard of or partook in some mechanical accident. Back at the old factory, he constantly heard the workers and his father talk about them. This brand of juicer actually had a pretty safe design. But due to it being a promotional product, it had its casing removed, so when the cleaning button was pressed, everyone was able to see the grinding wheels turning. With all of those coincidences put together, an accident of this severity was bound to happen. Yi Qing, while being heartbroken, could only thank the lords for the lack of torque in the grinding wheel. The little girl's mom, while crying out a river of tears, begged for Yi Qing to help. Another 2 workers joined in the rescue. They lifted up the machine so that Yi Qing could get a full grasp of the machine, and to prevent excessive bleeding from the arm. At the same time, some of the onlookers were already on their phones calling 911. But half of the little girl's arm was already stuck in the stainless steel inners of the machine. Yi Qing, having detached the machine from the base, found that the grinding wheels had already gotten stuck with the stainless steel inners. If they were to forcefully remove the girl's arm from there, then they would really rip her arm apart. Furthermore, the stainless steel inners were welded together, so there was absolutely no way for them to rip it apart. From first look, there were 2 things to be happy about. 1, the girl's left hand had her palm facing the grinders. If it was the back of the hand, then her finger bones would already be broken by now. 2 was the small amount of excessive bleeding, meaning the girl's level of damage wasn't as serious as it looked. A man with a floor manager label, ran over out of nowhere covered in sweat. The accident here was reported to him by his subordinates right after it happened. He first scolded the female worker completely upside down and then some, then came over to the girl's mom, and told her that they would take full responsibility. Yi Qing took a pair of pliers, with few decisive strokes cut of the power line, and then unscrewed all the screws near the motor. This way he could actually remove the motor from the stainless steel inners. Taking a look at the machine's packaging, then looking at the other juicer, he tried the cleaning button to see the revolution speed of the grinding wheels. It's not as bad as it looks. While under cleaning mode, the motors will turn at a very slow revolution. This kind of slow revolution also means a low flow of power, so there won't be that much damage. Yi Qing gave the girl a reassuring look. Hospital first, let the doctors decide how to proceed. One of you hold her arm up, I'll drive everyone over. A brave male worker held the little girl's wrist in one hand, and had the other hold on to the stainless steel inners. Then Yi Qing Princess carried the little girl and rushed towards the building's parking lot on the other side of the street. From here to the People's Hospital of Zhongyun was only 10+ kilometers. From when the accident occurred up to now, only several minutes had passed. Whether or not an ambulance had already left was definitely a question, but driving the Lagonda would undoubtedly be faster. Thanks, big brother. The little girl dug further into Yi Qing's embrace with an even paler face. The aching pains coming from her hand had her tears uncontrollably flow out. No problem. So little girl, what's your name? My name is Insinian, big brother. My hand is going to be fine, right? Insinian's other hand was busying brushing away her tears, and she tightly clenched her mouth right after speaking. Definitely, I saw, it's not serious at all. Yi Qing reassured her again. Insinian's mom followed behind them, completely out of her wits. The sweating bullet supermarket manager took another car and brought 2 other workers to the hospital. Jaywalking across the street, and ignoring everyone else's sight, Yi Qing ran over to his car, and had the supermarket employee and the little girl sit in the back. When everyone seated, the Lagonda roared out in a flash. The roars from the engine set off all the nearby cars' anti-theft system underground. Running 2 red lights, when the Lagonda got to the People's Hospital of Zhongyun, only 17 minutes had passed. Right now was currently working hours, so there were more than enough hands on deck at the hospital. Just as they rushed into the emergency lobby, several nurses on call were already running towards them. The stainless steel inners blocked the path of X-rays. Unable to determine the condition of the hand bones, Insinian was directly moved into the surgery room, while Yi Qing and the others were left outside. Inside the surgery room, the nurses exchanged the makeshift sling for a brand new one, then picked up a pair of scissors, and swiftly opened up the left sleeve. 2 doctors with surgery gowns came out of the disinfectant room, carefully examined the palm that was stuck inside of the stainless steel clump, and found that the stainless steel inners and the grinding wheels were very tightly stuck together, impossible to remove either of them. Using a medical endoscope to examine the inside of the stainless steel clump by following along the grooves, the doctors found that the damages to Insinian's fingers weren't severe at all. It was just that the grinding wheels had a tight grip on it, thus, due to lacking blood flow to the fingers, it had began to turn purple. Call the fire department to come cut it open. A doctor told the nurses to make the call. Chapter 85. The Helpless Firefighters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Firefighters, apart from preventing and putting out fires, also partake in many rescue operations. Because of high degree of cooperation needed in the operations, doctors and firefighters frequently work together. Many times during the surgery of those who were in a mechanical accident, firefighters would work together with the doctors to, at the same time, save the person and remove the mechanical parts that are stuck in their bodies. Surgery rooms normally have 3 different entrances. One main entrance, one specifically for doctors, and one for special needs. 10 minutes later, a fire truck arrived at the back of the hospital, and 3 firefighters with their mechanical cutters, after being disinfected and changing, entered the surgery room. The girl's hand is stuck inside of this clump of metal. There's also a grinding wheel inside. The doctor in charge was pretty familiar with some of the firefighters, and before he even had the chance to greet them. I've seen the hand through the endoscope, it's stuck between the grinding wheels, but still fine. It's just that it's tightly sandwiched between the wheels, which needs to be quickly broken up. Otherwise the muscles and bones within the fingers, under this high amount of pressure for a long time, will lose their ability to grip and feel. Team leader Shi Yuqing quickly came forward, seeing the stainless steel clump, his heart thumped. Continuing to examine the circumstance, Shi Yuqing's unrest was continuing to grow. Little girl, Mr. Firefighter here will quickly remove this piece of metal from your hand. Shi Yuqing softly reassured Ancinian, who was on the operating table. Ancinian nodded in response. Having already been stuck for half an hour, her face had become even paler. Right now what she was feeling wasn't pain, rather it was numbness. The nurses hadn't given her any anesthetics, because this specific numbness was only caused when there wasn't enough blood flow in the area for a long period of time. Ancinian glanced over, and called the two doctors and another firefighter for a quick chat. Dr. Shi, I fear we are limited on what we can do. Oh. You guys can't cut it even with mechanical cutters. Dr. Shi was completely lost. Weren't all the factory victims before all rescued with those mechanical cutters? Last time that guy who had his hand stuck in the machining axle, wasn't it your mechanical cutter that freed him? That's a different situation. Shi Yuqing, who was in the same age group as Yi Qing, made a whispering gesture, and whispered. Don't you remember how long it took us to cut apart that machining axle? It took a whole 40 minutes, and that was only one part of it. We later had to use a hydraulic press to forcefully pry open the cut to free the hand. The girl's hand is stuck between thick-walled stainless steel. Stainless steel is known for its hardness and toughness, plus that fact that the clump is circular in shape, there's no way to find a pressure point. And if we were to actually cut it, then we have to do it vertically at both ends for a total distance of nearly 30 centimeters. We're also going to need a large water jet to keep the blades cool. Without 5 to 6 hours, there's no way we can cut it open. 5 to 6 hours. Dr. Shi was astonished. We can't even wait an hour. If it's 5 to 6 hours, then we might as well as amputate it. If stainless steel is as hard to cut as you've described it, then how do those factories cut them apart? There's no way they would spend days on a single component, right? The other doctor was also quite puzzled, as he couldn't comprehend how a steel rod could be cut in several minutes, yet stainless steel needed several hours. Factories generally use plasma cutters, or wire saw machines to cut stainless steel. Plasma cutters use several thousand-degree electric arcs to penetrate the steel. If it's so, then would it not carbonize her hand by then? Wire saws can only saw it in half, so her hand will also be cut apart. Shi Yuqing was somewhat helpless. Right now there's only one possibility for keeping her hand. And that is to give her some anesthetic, then use the hydraulic press to forcefully reverse the grinding wheels. The wheels of the grinder were rigidly stuck. This meant that to reverse turn the wheels, the hand would definitely be injured again. Most importantly, after this long, the girl's hand has began to swell, so if they were to reverse turn then. Yet without reversing, then there was also no other solution. Hence the firefighters' heartaches and determination. Since even the firefighters were out of ideas, the doctors decisively came to a decision and told the nurse to inform the girl's family, to be prepared for the reversal of the grinding wheels. There was already a lot of people gathered in the hallway. Some were the relatives from the girl's family, and the other bunch being the anxious workers from the supermarket. Ancinian had 6 family members present, 2 grandparents and 2 other married couples, and they were just missing her father. Hearing Ancinian's mother explain everything that had happened, the 6 family members all gathered around Yi Qing. The 2 grandparents even grabbed his hand and delightedly commented. Young man, thank you so much, you are the savior of our Nian. That slight effort isn't worth mentioning at all. For Nian, you even ran 2 red lights. Nian's mother replied as she wiped her tears. Yes, second, third, did you bring any money? A grandparent hurriedly asked the girls beside him, then went through his own pockets. Who's the victim's mother? A nurse pushed open the surgery room door and yelled at the gathered group. Me. The situation for the victim is kind of peculiar. Even with the firefighters here, it was still impossible to free the hand with a minimal amount of damage. Hence we can only proceed with other high-risk options with possible damages. What kind of damages? The family members now were all suddenly nervous, and grouped around the nurse. The victim's hand will receive second-degree injuries, with possibilities of damages to its ability to grip. If you guys agree, then please sign on the non-retaliation contract. Ansinyan's mother, and the two grandparents, as soon as they heard the situation, paled, got on their knees and begged the nurse to see whether or not the doctors and firefighters could figure out a new plan. There really isn't any other way, you guys can think about it, but the victim can't wait too long. The nurse, having finished what was needed to be said, prepared to close the surgery room door, but felt a powerful hand preventing it. When did the firefighters come? How come we didn't see them come? Can they not cut open the clump of metal? So are you guys preparing to forcefully reverse the grinding wheels? We have special passages, but I didn't understand a bit of what the firefighters were discussing. The nurse stuttered. The man was so overcoming, but those deeply confident eyes, had the nurse feel his intense macho-ness. Have one of them come out and talk with me, just tell them I have ways to cut open the clump. The nurse Ohade ran back into the surgery room, and delivered Yi Qing's message to the doctors and firefighters. These relatives are all morons. The other doctor was now definitely pissed. Even the firefighter said it wasn't possible, so what methods do the family relative possess? He doesn't look like a relative of the victim. The nurse shyly said. That man appears to be the one who drove the victim over, and seems to have a good heart. Calm down, Dr. Sher. This man being able to guess the fact that we aren't able to cut open the clump of metal, implies that he is experienced in the field, and most likely is some factory's boss. Sher Yuqing said, and told them that he would head out for a chat with him. Sure, but be quick, we don't have much time left. Sher Yuqing pushed past the door for a peek, first with doubt, then suddenly realized something as he happily asked. It's you. You know me. Yi Qing wasn't able to identify this man who was wearing a surgical mark at all. That time with the accident on the state way, our fire engines had to take some detours, but was blocked by you to warn us of tire poppers in the fields. Yi Qing naturally remembered that accident, but who would have thought that the firefighter would have such great memory? Right now was time to catch up, hence Yi Qing's quick question. Are you guys preparing to forcefully reverse the grinding wheels? Yes, if I recall correctly, your car should have had a lot of mechanical cutter advertisements printed on it. Sher Yuqing quickly said as well. You're experienced in the field, so you definitely know why we didn't choose to cut open the stainless steel clump. The nurse just said you have plans, so can it be that you can cut it open? Yeah, give me 20 minutes, I need to go grab the equipment. Chapter 86. Applause. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. When Sher Yuqing got back into the surgery room, he told Dr. Sher to wait another 20 minutes. What is this bullshit? You even said it yourself that mechanical cutters needed 5 to 6 hours to cut through. The other doctor was irritated to the point of going nuts. Wasting this much time, if something does happen, who's responsible? I trust him, he's a man with a good heart. Sher Yuqing straight up ignored this doctor. Dr. Sher took another look through the endoscope to observe the condition of Ansinyan's hand. The little girl's hand has already turned completely purple. I can only give another 30 minutes before a final decision needs to be made. Team leader, how many times have we cut these things open? So where is the need to question our knowledge of whether this is cuttable? The other two firefighters were somewhat hesitant. It wasn't that they fear the blame, but rather feel sorry for the little girl who was just laying there on the surgery table. What's more was that the longer the wait, the more likely unforeseen mishaps would occur. He says 20 minutes, so we'll wait 20 minutes, just for the chance to rescue this little girl. Sher Yuqing believed in Yi Qing, because the mechanical cutter advertisements on his minivan showed how much more experienced in the field he was compared to himself. When the electric clock on the wall displayed the passing of 17 minutes, knocking noise could be heard coming from the door of the surgery room. The nurse opened the door to take a look. That young man from before was back, and with him was a very high-tech looking machine that was just like the regular anesthetic. The nurse, without any knowledge in the mechanical sector, could still recognize that the machine wasn't a mechanical cutter at all. But with no time left for the regular disinfection procedures, the nurse directly gave Yi Qing a set of surgery cloth and mask. Team leader Shi Yuqing and the other two firefighters' happy and relieved expression were replaced by ones full of shock and amazement, as they ignorantly looked at the unknown machine. It was a small, but compact machine with extremely high levels of complexity. Below its square-ish base were 4 wheels, one in each corner. It had 8 hydraulic-like presses right above them, and a workbench at the top connected to many sturdy-looking black tubes. "Didn't you say you'll be operating mechanical cutters?" Even Shi Yuqing, who knew of many cutting methods, couldn't help but ask Yi Qing such a question cluelessly. "Who said I would use mechanical cutters?" Yi Qing quickly placed the machine right next to the surgery table, and had the nurse bring over 2 buckets of water. You. Without a mechanical cutter, how are you going to cut?" The other doctor obviously couldn't get his mind around the corner. "What is this thing, and why do you need buckets of water?" Yi Qing didn't bother responding to him, rather he looked at Ancinian. Right now Ancinian had already tightly closed her eyes, to bear with the pain. After such a long time had passed, she didn't have the strength to spare to keep her eyes open. The nurses hurriedly left to get the needed water, while Yi Qing pulled out the power cord for the machine. "Alright, let me fill you in. This piece of equipment is called the computer-guided ultra-high-pressure water cutter." Yi Qing, having connected the power, started the computer guidance system. "You guys see the many pressure cylinders underneath it yet? They can pressurize water to 380 MPa, and can be released through those jet hoses above. The release velocity of the water jet released is generally 3 times that of a handgun bullet when fired. TL, 380 MPa. 55,114.34 psi, in contrast 1 atmosphere. 14.7 psi, although mechanical cutters can quickly cut through stainless steel, they create lots of residual heat. The heat can only be released or transferred by spraying water on the blades. Not only does that mean starting and stopping while working, but it also wastes tons of precious time. Pressurized water cutters can do the job without the need for heat creation." Pressurized water cutters. Everyone was dumbstruck. When several of the firefighters were getting training in factory fire prevention, they also witnessed a pressurized water cutter at work within washing heavy industry. Yet this kind of metal cutter equipment, not only was it cumbersome to move, it was also super expensive. As for the machine in front of them, it was compact to the point of being able to be randomly placed in the back seat of a car without any problem. Yet the water shoot out by pressurized water cutters could definitely penetrate through the stainless steel. For a water jet that could penetrate through stainless steel, what kind of result would occur when it was shoot at human bodies? The nurses quickly brought over 2 buckets of water. Yi Qing, unable to fully explain everything, used a makeshift ruler to measure the thickness of the stainless steel clump, and quickly entered his eyeballed results into the control system. Yes. If this was a regular computer-guided pressurized water cutter, then it would be next to impossible for it to cut open stainless steel without damaging the insides. But this compact pressurized water cutter of Yi Qing's was a rare quality tool from the Monster Factory's tool market. It could use the entered or sensed data to automatically adjust the depth of the cut and the needed pressure, to be just like an engraver, cutting away only what was needed. The height of the surgery table was also adjustable, so Yi Qing had the nurses change its height to be the exact same as this pressurized water cutter, then used surgical cloth to isolate the workbench, preventing any water from being shoot at Ancinian's body. Having adjusted all the parameters, Yi Qing lightly brought up Ancinian's left hand and the stainless steel clump onto the workbench. With a light hum of electric motors, 2 clamps popped out of the 2 sides of the workbench, securely securing the stainless steel clump. As Yi Qing pressed the start button on the control panel, the jet nozzles on the 3 axles of the workbench slowly began to center themselves according to the stainless steel clump. Without any blades, accompanied by the movement of the many pressure cylinders below, the jet nozzles on the workbench, with a buzz, shot out streams of extremely thin jets of water that were beyond imagination. The firefighters all widely opened their eyes, as in front of such high-tech equipment, they had already lost the right to speak or even comment. The doctors and nurses were also dumbstruck. Even if they had been doing surgeries for 3 generations, they still couldn't believe that a piece of high-tech industrial equipment could be used on the operating table to save lives. The extremely loud rumbling noise had many of the nurses involuntarily cover their ears. Yet the scene in front of them was memorable for a lifetime. The super tough stainless steel that even the firefighters couldn't cut, under the treatment of these jets of water, turned to be softer than a stick of butter. The jets of water walked a precise straight line. When the many water droplets cleared, a precise deep cut appeared. The firefighters all had their hearts in their throats, as they deathly stared on at those high-pressure water jets, and non-stop praying for them to not actually shoot through the stainless steel. On the other hand, Yi Qing wasn't worried at all, because this rare quality water cutter could automatically adjust its depth and pressure in accordance to what it senses from its sensors. Doubting its abilities implies doubting the monster factory's strength. Seeing the non-stop flowing jets of water, their pressure had already been adjusted many times by the computer-guided system. 3 minutes later, the first cut from the water cutter was complete. Several firefighters gathered up their courage and went to examine the cut with wide-open eyes. The 3 all drew in deep breaths as the deep precise cut on the thick stainless steel stopped within paper-thin margin of breaking through. If every other cut was like this, then probably anyone with large enough strength could rip it apart. There was a must-learn technique within the whole special police task force called the hand-rip basin. Usually the thickness of those stainless steel basin used were much thicker than this margin. Yi Qing prepared the machine for another cut. This time, without the need for Yi Qing to warn, everyone obediently backed off to the side, and stared at Yi Qing with admiring eyes. The nurses were all awestruck. They all felt that this young and successful man, while working, possessed an irresistible attraction. Bursts of violent hums coming from the water cutter burst their daydreaming bubbles. 3 minutes later, the second cut was also successfully completed. While Yi Qing was pushing the water cutter aside, the already agitatedly waiting firefighters all rushed forward. 2 pairs of pliers grabbed onto the stainless steel clump, and without much effort, the stainless steel clump was ripped apart. Maybe it was because of the disappearance of the high-pressure feeling, but Xinyan's almost completely purple left hand unintentionally spasmed. She had a clear cut on her palm. It was clotted right now, probably because the cut wasn't deep at all. There were some other abrasion on the back of her hand and fingers, but those were all superficial injuries. Removing the grinding wheels that held onto her hand, Dr. Shirk carefully examined her hand and finger bones, and excitingly said, "Oh my God, none of our bones are actually damaged. Quick, get me a CT scan, I need to know if there are any further injuries." Clap clap clap. A nurse applauded movingly and looked at Yi Qing with hero-like eyes. Clap 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 clap. Under the joyous atmosphere, everyone else also joined in the round of applause, and looked at Yi Qing with admiration. I apologize for my idiocy. That doctor was afraid of a medical inquiry after this, which would affect his future endeavors, embarrassingly said. Today you seriously taught me what real high-tech means. I also want to apologize. A firefighter walked forward. Before I thought you were a total retard for bringing in such a useless piece of junk. But now I must submit, completely and utterly submit. I would have never thought that mechanical cutters could evolve into such a high-tech piece of equipment. Chapter 87. A natural price hike. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Seeing the circumstance in front of him, Yi Qing let out a sigh of relief inside, and felt completely wonderful. Now that there was nothing left for them to do, the firefighters packed up and prepared to leave. Seeing that Yi Qing was also preparing to leave, the firefighters all came forward to help him move the machine. The operating room had a special tunnel for special times, and their fire engine was also parked at the back of the building. The firefighters still needed to head back and wait for other emergencies, but Yiqing still grabbed Yiqing's right hand and thanked him non-stop, saying that if he needed a fire inspection in the future, to give him a call. Now that the firefighters had left, Yiqing also decided to secretly leave. Placing the compact water cutter in the back, Yiqing then put it away in the monster factory. Right then, Su Xiaohu called asking where he was, and that customer relations just got a massive order from some company called Illusion Corporation. They even asked whether or not they were willing to launch a joint venture with them. Illusion Corporation. Yiqing was surprisingly shocked. It sounded like some VR tech company, but they didn't have much presence in the field because the majority of the technology was grasped by American-based companies. Recently many major corporations have joined on the virtual reality hype train. Except only the goggles were easy to make, everything else such as the software and programs were all full of hidden obstacles that were very difficult to surpass. A real virtual reality goggle must be all-inclusive. Where the user looks, the images must follow accordingly. Yiqing didn't understand the software part of them, hence he was unable to help improve VR technologies. But when you add the mechanical engineered chair to the mix, then many of the impossible actions needed for virtual reality become possible. Pairing up with virtual reality movements was also one of the mechanical engineered chair's selling points. They're looking to cooperate with me. Yiqing rushed back to the new office in 20 minutes, and Su Xiaohu, who hadn't experienced anything like this, immediately gave Yiqing a seat to one of the customer relation computers. This so-called Illusion Corporation's CEO client, straight up ordered 20 mechanical engineered chairs, saying that they were to act in a pair with their company's products during the upcoming tech convention. Yiqing typed. I'm the owner. Does your company really want to launch a joint venture or cooperation? The other side replied. Hi, I'm the CEO of Illusion Corporation. It's like this, our company specializes in making wearable gear that can be used in virtual reality and other 3D virtual environments. We possess highly advanced virtual reality gear, supporting motion sensing guns, motion captioning controls, traditional controls, steering wheels and such. But we are always lacking a piece of equipment that can let the users experience the all-inclusive experience. I've seen your company's product videos, which perfectly suits our needs for a moving equipment. Hence, we want to cooperate with you to create a chair specifically designed for VR. Your company doesn't need to make any changes to the design, as the chair's functionalities are already perfect. All that needs to be done is to create a new set of movement program such that it is linked to the images from the virtual reality. Yiqing replied. I've already released the source code for development, you can go ahead and develop what you want, I'll just sell my chair. No, can we possibly meet face to face to discuss this? Face to face meeting. Yiqing naturally would agree to a face to face meeting, but if anything related to shares or rights purchasing were to come up, then the meeting would be immediately over. Because Yiqing doesn't and will not share the profits of the chair with anyone. Yiqing had already registered trademarks for the chair, so he wasn't afraid of people imitating it. Of course, they also needed the ability to imitate it to begin with. Yiqing warned him first, that he wasn't planning on share the rights to the chair with anyone. The CEO replied that it wasn't about the rights to the chair, and stressed that they must have a discussion in person about it. Yiqing said that his company was in Zhongyun, to call him when he got there, and he would come pick him up. Having finished chatting, Yiqing felt surprisingly extraordinary because a somewhat well-known tech company was actually going to come over to discuss about cooperation. Uncle, the chair you made is seriously too easy to sell. Su Xiaohu was in complete admiration. In just a single morning alone, we've already sold over 60 of them, and the amount of people inquiring about it is even higher. It really isn't little. Yiqing scratched his chin. Now the product was already this popular after its initial release, and even a VR company was running over to discuss cooperation for a VR-specific chair. Then, Under the excuse of tight production numbers, Yi Qing could only shamelessly imply a natural price hike in accordance to the market. Having not enough product to sell, naturally meant price hikes. It was just that those who were still contemplating whether to buy or not, would definitely curse him to the sky and beyond. Meh, oh well, who let the product be this popular? Yi Qing quickly ran back into his office, sat down on the vibrating mechanical engineered chair, and began to modify the information of the product within the web store. Our dear valued customers, due to the high production costs of the product, we are sorry to inform you that the zero profit price tag event is now over. Due to the stabilization of sales, and for the future of the company, the product's price tag will return to what it originally was. 88,800. When Yi Qing updated the price, sure enough in less than 2 minutes, many of those who were still contemplating, immediately bombarded customer relations. Some said god damn fking capitalists, others asked why they didn't go rob a bank. Some others even said they would give their kidney to them. Some others said 88,000 per chair, wife wickedly laughing with knife in hand and whatnot. Yi Qing, seeing that there was nothing out of ordinary, immediately ran off. Otherwise those client relation girls would definitely grudgingly stare him to death. Now that he had over 27 million on hand, the explosive sales of the mechanical engineered chair, straight up removed Yi Qing's worry about having no money left to spend. Hence Yi Qing was going to go on a massive spending spree, though first comes building the metal smelting center. It was the most important building for the Level 3 monster factory. It was also a must-have building in any heavy industry. Building the metal smelting center would waste tens of thousands of tons of steel. Thus Yi Qing must contribute to the slumping domestic steel industry. Most industrial steel was in the form of steel plates, round steel, and flat steel. Whereas steel used in construction were I-beams, angle steel, and rebars. And every kind of steel was classified by complex model numbers by their size, material, tempering and such. Yi Qing required all kind of them because currently the workshop in the Dragon Beach factory was just too small. Hence Yi Qing's need to expand, plus the hidden base that was going to be built under the hills, the amount of steel he needed was simply terrifying. Yi Qing called his father to see if he had any friends in the steel business, as he was in need of purchasing massive loads. Buying steel from whoever was still buying, thus naturally this favor was left for his father. Half an hour later, Yi Qing arrived at a large warehouse on the outskirts of town. A completely haggard and restless man was currently waiting in front of the entrance to the warehouse. Beside him was an old-looking electric scooter. Seeing a glistening silver-color luxury car approach, Mr. Li immediately ran up bowing and scraping, trembling as he pulled out some zhonghua, seeing that it hasn't been opened, and promptly unpacked it. He was called Li Suohua. Originally he traded massive amount of steel around, but due to the recent slump in the steel industry, the first ones who were affected were traders like him who had massive amounts stocked up. Receiving a call from an old friend, telling him that there was a massive steel deal waiting for him. Li Suohua, who had invested much of his personal wealth and debt into steel, almost burst out crying on the spot. The door to the warehouse had already been pulled apart by Li Suohua with great effort. A whole 10,000 ton of all kinds of steel, were all ordered neatly in the warehouse by kind. Yi Qing got out of the car, politely greeted him, asked about the price of the steel, and said he wanted to inspect him. Li Suohua hurriedly agreed, and even said that the more he bought the cheaper it was. What Yi Qing mainly needed was steel plates. But within the warehouse were all kinds of different steel, there was also lots of galvanized, anti-corrosive, I-beams as well, which Yi Qing also needed. Of course, quality was another matter, thus Yi Qing brought a portable grinder with him, and asked Mr. Li whether or not he can examine the quality. This brother is a veteran in the field. Experts who constantly do processing work could guess the quality of the steel, though seeing the amount of sparks that fly off when grinding at a set speed. This steel was produced from large factories, which all came with standard quality certificates, so Li Suohua easily agreed to the ins. At the same time, he was also praying for this brother to buy a lot after the inspection. Preferably hundreds if not thousands of tons, that way he can free up some of his capital and live easier days. Chapter 88. Give me all of it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Yi Qing examined everything meticulously, and after a round, saw that all the steel was up to par, and were all from large smelteries. It's still not enough. Yi Qing complained. What's not enough? Li Suohua hadn't reacted, or rather didn't even comprehend what Yi Qing was talking about. These steel, there's only 10,000 tons, it's too damn little. Li Suohua was almost scared to the point of collapsing, widened his eyes and stuttered. You want it all? Yes, so I'll pay 50% of it right now. Help me move all this steel back to the factory, and I'll give you the rest. All of it, and even paying half of what it was worth right up front, the rest would be paid when the product arrived. Right now the whole steel industry was suffering from the problem of excessive product, hence every steel maker and trader was facing hard times. Yet this brother in front of him, not only did he empty out his entire inventory, he even had the ability to pay for everything up front. Hard times were a problem that everyone would need to face. For those with established families, and 50-plus-year-old people, sometimes a period of difficulty would smack them back to how they were before they started working. Furthermore, they would also have lost the courage and the chance from their youth to gamble with everything they had again. If it weren't for this accidental Yi Qing, then Li Suohua not only would be lost everything and back to where he started, he'll also never be able to climb up again. I. Suddenly Li Suohua felt tears rolling down his face. This unpredictable surprise, as if blocking his throat, had him completely lost for words. He and Yi Jiangning were only superficial friends, but who would have thought that this ordinary friend of his, while he was in the depth of hell like everyone else, introduced him to a super large client, that not only dragged him out of the depths of hell, but also threw him right into heaven. I've got a bunch of friends who also have a lot of steel stocked up. The price will definitely be the lowest, and the quality is guaranteed to be the same. Li Suohua wiped his tears, and found it hilarious that he was actually crying. Sure, go ask for me, but make sure the quality is the same. Yi Qing nodded. To be completely honest, this steel that had been sitting around for a while was even better than those just smelted steel in some areas. Within them was the most important problem of metal stress. Metal that was placed under natural conditions could let the metal stress disappear. Those who work in the precision industry, especially care for the stress level of the metal they use. Half an hour later, Li Suohua and Yi Qing arrived at another, albeit much smaller, steel warehouse. There was only 2,000 tons stocked there, plus it was of great quality. Yi Qing without another word, emptied it. His father gave him 3 locations, while Li Suohua brought him to 4 others, and with no difference, as soon as Yi Qing finished inspecting them, he emptied them. It was just that when added all together, it was only 25,000 tons. Still quite far from Yi Qing's target goal. Again calling his father to ask if he had any other friends. Even friends of friends are fine, but the steel definitely needed to be up to par. Hanging up the call, Yi Qing also got on his WeChat. Yi Qing graduated from mechanical engineering, hence he knew of some classmates who owned factories, as well as some who went to work for other factories after graduating. Opening his WeChat, Yi Qing saw a friend request right at the top of the screen. Clicking on it, and saw that it was someone called Daodu who sent the request. Yi Qing pressed accept, and sent over a smiley right after. Then opening his classmate chat group, and asked everyone if they knew anyone who had stockpiled steel to call him. The group was completely dead. No problem, Yi Qing sent a 200 yuan red pocket, set for 40 people. Su Lu received your red pocket. Zhang Ying received your red pocket. Su Lele received your red pocket. Within 30 seconds, 20 plus people has received the red pockets. Then there was an overwhelming amount of "thank you boss, thank you President Yi." It was just that none of those classmates of his were actually in the steel trading business. Some knew someone who was, but they were all small-time traders, who made passable livings. Right at that moment, Dowdu replied. "Sorry Big Brother Yi, I was just at the TV station getting used to the surroundings with the director, and learning the things to watch out for while broadcasting." "No problem, I was also busy." "Oh right, does your family know of anyone who's in the steel trading business?" "Not that I know of." Yi Qing shared some big facts. Recently the factory is building new buildings. After sweeping through several steel warehouses, it only totaled to 20-some thousand tons, which is short of the needed goal by several tens of thousand tons. Ah! Dowda sure enough got a scare, as she sent a shocked radish head expression. She didn't know industry, but she understood math. Even if a ton of steel only cost 1,000, that was still 20-some million for 20-some thousand tons. Of course she didn't know that there was stockpiled steel everywhere. As long as you were willing to spend the money, it was even possible to get 1,000,000 tons of steel. It was just that Yi Qing wanted to give out favors to family and friends only. "Big Brother Yi, do you need me to help you ask? My dad's the finance manager at the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China on Peace Road, he probably knows some people." "Sure." Yi Qing said yes, but he didn't really expect anything out of it. The municipality of Zhongyan had over 100 Industrial and Commercial Bank of China branches. These small branch banks were all made up of 10-some people, and the finance manager there held the manager title, but was more like a floor manager, helping out clients wherever they were needed. Passing the bank's inspections and getting promotions was all tied to the person's ability. If the person in question knew some big clients and was able to get a loan from them, then that naturally meant promotions, otherwise have fun staying at the bottom. Chatting for another bit, his father called, saying that he found 2 other friends who had stockpiled steel. It was just they were both not very big since together they only had 1,000-some tons on hand. Yi Qing first said goodbye to Dowdu, then went over to sweep out their warehouses. Having returned back to the Dragon Creek Beach factory in the evening, Li Suohua was already there waiting with his team of trucks. Behind him was a long line of trucks that had reached Huanhai Avenue. The sight was simply beyond imagination. Close to 200 heavy trucks lining up for several kilometers, and there were even dozens of forklifts at the end. That was only half of the purchased amount. After delivering this batch, they needed to make another trip. In front of the factory gate were a group of 7 to 8 steel traders. Normally they all saw each other as rivals, but right now they were all gathered together to celebrate and be merry. Their chatting topics never left Yi Jiangning and Yi Qing, their 2 lifesavers. When Yi Qing arrived, he had them all dump the steel in an empty corner of the factory, and told them he would pay for everything after the next batch. The traders swiftly left to command the forklifts to move the products. Yi Qing called a master artisan over to oversee everything and keep all the steel neatly sorted. Yi Qing disappeared into his office, and continued to search the forums for 1,000,000-ton press and 50-ton electric furnace sales. Those 2 pieces industrial-scale equipment were the core for the metal smelting center. 1,000,000-ton presses were somewhat easy to find, but if there weren't any 50-ton electric furnaces available on hand, then he could only order from the makers, wait several months, and waste another large sum of money on deliveries. Electrical furnace was the common furnace used to smelt mixed alloys. There were always 5-ton, 10-ton, 15-ton furnaces on the market, but the 50-ton ones that Yi Qing needed were just too rare. Buying from other provinces, unless the seller was right next to the sea, and was able to cargo ship it, would cost just simply too much to move such a large industrial-scale equipment. Searching through the net for days, Yi Qing wasn't able to find one within the local area, but found a smaller one for sale in a nearby coastal city. If he paid the down payment now, then it would probably arrive within a week. The smaller electric furnace from that coastal city was only of 25 tons. The closest 50-ton furnace that is available for sale was over 700 kilometers away. However, just when Yi Qing was contemplating whether to buy the electric furnace or not, his phone rang with a call from Daodu. Chapter 89. Getting Lucky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. Sorry Big Brother Yi, I asked my father after work, but he also doesn't know any big steel traders. Said Daodu, with some embarrassment. I asked him to help out, and he ended up calling the public general manager at the main branch, who does tons of work with industries. The public general manager said that his one and only steel producer, not long after getting a loan, declared bankruptcy. The steel they made was used to supplement the workers' wages a long time ago, and all that was left for the bank was a head-aching pile of equipment. And that's fine, if there isn't any left in Zhongyun, then I guess I just order the rest from out of the province, and waste some time waiting for them. That just foreclosed steel maker should be a maker of special steel. Yi Qing recalled. If I remember correctly, our Zhongyun doesn't have any steel smelters, rather only special steel makers. I don't know too much about this. On Daodu's side, there was what sounded like dinner calls. Auntie is calling you for dinner, go eat first, we can talk later. Yi Qing, seeing the pile of fast food in the corner of the room, thought that it was also time for him to eat. Say hello to uncle and auntie for me, and thank him for helping me ask. Alright Big Brother Yi, I'm going to eat dinner now. Hanging up the call, Daodu felt super sweet inside. Not only was Big Brother Yi stronger than all those presidents in those dramas, and not mentioning his knowledge, he was even politer than them. Daodu's family was only a high-end middle-income family. Her knowledge of being rich, all came from those role model-like male presidents from drama series. So naturally, if Daodu were to rate Yi Qing, then of course she would rate him in comparison to those presidents. Except the more she compared, the more she found that all those presidents were all getting their asses handed to them by Yi Qing. Those presidents were all arrogant beyond being godlike. Not only did they need someone to take care of them, they were even pickier than a princess. If they were to eat any peasant food, they would exaggerate to the point of being hospitalized. Now look at Big Brother Yi, the first time they met was at Ayun's snack shop, and he didn't even forget to greet mom and dad when hanging up. At the dinner table, Daodu asked her dad whether or not that bankrupt steel factory specialized in making special steel. Her father Bai Chingan said yeah. Hearing the main branch manager say, the only thing that was worth anything there was a several-story tall pressure press, and a 50-ton electric furnace. Yi Qing in his office, microwaved a bento of kung pao chicken, plus a cup of hot tea, and that was that. After clearing out the bento, Yi Qing walked out to the production workshop, to tally the results of the day's hard work. Right now, Yi Qing was focusing on making more chairs. 20 hours of different shifts, able to produce 300 plus daily, was barely able to meet the order requirements from all over the country. The rapid metal engraving machines also sold pretty well, only 5 were left from the original stockpile. Yi Qing took a look at the Monster Factory's ranking, it rose up to rank 297, and the industry index jumped from the original 839 to 2711, meaning the ability to disguise 20 more monsters. When the metal smelting center was complete and operational, the rankings for the Monster Factory would definitely rise again. As soon as the factory could get on to the 10th spot within the local rankings, then the Monster Factory could once again level up, and be one step closer to becoming the complete overlord of the manufacturing industry. Need to work harder. Having finished inspecting the workshop, Yi Qing, alone, entered the secret base under the surrounding barren hills. Below the barren hills, an area that was almost half of a football stadium was already emptied out by the raging miners. At the bottom of the 20-plus meter deep base, was a mountain of dazzling metallic titanium ore. For never-before-seen raging miners, were currently circling around the titanium ore, and mining further into the earth non-stop. Surrounding the 4 sides of the base was a long winding stretch of road going from the bottom to the top. 8 big sports stadium lights were installed at the top of the cave, which illuminated every single nook and cranny of the cave and then some. Yi Qing summoned out the MPCV, and used the 4-meter-long mechanical arms to drill holes all over the surrounding walls, to leave the framework for installing air purifier and electrical wiring. As soon as night fell, Yi Qing would command the raging miners and the peons to move all the piles of steel from outside into the secret base, and even set up the base necessary to build the metal smelting center on. Large-scale welding naturally meant using the MPCV. With the MPCV and the heavy-duty crane system that was the raging miners in hand, the work of welding up the base didn't need the help of the peons at all. As for the missing million-ton pressure press and electric furnace, he could only find some free time and make a trip out of the province to buy. The secret base only had one air intake pipe. Yi Qing piloted the MPCV until all the holes had been drilled, before heading up back onto the surface for some nice fresh air. As soon as the cell phone connected to the cellular network, it began to buzz on all the notifications he missed. There was a WeChat messages from Daodu telling him that her dad confirmed his guess of that factory being a special steel maker. Now that the owner of the factory ran off after declaring bankruptcy, there was only a several-story tall pressure press and a 50-ton electric furnace left that was worth something. The general manager who did the risk assessment and gave out the loan for the factory, was currently having sleepless nights wondering how to get rid of the equipment. Several-story tall pressure press. 50-ton electric furnace. Yi Qing suddenly had an urge to burst into tears. Daodu really was his lucky fruit. Yi Qing was just contemplating where he should buy the million-ton pressure press and 50-ton electric furnace from out of the province, and spend an astronomical amount to have them shipped to Zhongyan. Now Daodu told him that bankrupt special steel maker, actually had the equipment he desperately needed waiting to be sold. Daodu, unknowingly riding the old factory's scooter on stream, pulled in tens of millions in purchases. Enthusiastically helping Yi Qing ask where there were large stockpiles of available steel for sale, although she didn't find any steel, but she unknowingly again helped Yi Qing find the whereabouts of the million-ton pressure press and 50-ton electric furnace that he so desperately needed. Yi Qing really wanted to run up to her and give her a deep loving kiss, just to demonstrate his thanks. "I call dibs." Yi Qing typed. "I was just wondering where I could buy a million-ton pressure press and 50-ton electric furnace in Zhongyan." A minute passed, but Daodu still hadn't replied. Yi Qing looking at the time. It had already passed 10 p.m., she probably already went to sleep. Having solved a very annoying problem, Yi Qing also happily went to sleep. The next morning, Yi Qing was woken up by the ringing from his cell phone. Still not fully awake, Yi Qing thought that it was Daodu calling, but with a glance, it was actually the CEO of Illusion Corporation. Connecting the call, the young CEO named Yan Zhaoge told Yi Qing that he and his secretary had just arrived at Zhongyan's airport. Right now was 5:30 in the morning. Yi Qing yawningly said that he would arrive at the airport in 40 minutes, and that they could get something to eat while waiting. Hurriedly getting out of bed and cleaning up, he also made a call to Su Xiaohu, telling him to bring 5 mechanical engineered chairs up from the basement warehouse, and place them in the company's reception area for product marketing later. "Oh right, get me some nice tea, and some desserts and whatnot. I need them for a client meeting later." Zhongyan's airport was called Shenyuan International Airport, located on the outskirts of Zhongyan Municipality. Yi Qing, after getting suited up, got onto Huanhai Avenue, and went on to the state highway at the end of it. 30 minutes later, Yi Qing drove the Lagonda right into the airport's arrival pickup terminal. Chapter 90. Cooperation discussion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translated by me, edited by Trapetro. The purrs from the Lagonda's engine swiftly attracted the attention of every waiting young man and woman. When Yi Qing got out and called back, very quickly a young-looking man in a purple suit waved at him. Attached to him was a beautiful girl in a professional white blouse. All right. Seeing the female secretary, Yi Qing was also wondering if he should get one as well. "Hi there, the trip must have been hard." Yi Qing hurriedly walked over and shook his hand. Yan Zhaoge said it wasn't hard, but his eyes were stealthily eyeing the Lagonda behind Yi Qing. Yan Zhaoga's personal ride was a Benz S-Series. Luckily Yan Zhaoga lived too far from Zhongyun and didn't drive over. Escorting them into the car, and getting onto the road back to the office, the two only talked about some superficial things, but who would have thought that Yan Zhaoga, a faraway guest, would be so knowledgeable about Zhongyun's cultural heritage. When they arrived at the new External Relations office, Su Xiaohu had already finished setting everything up for the meeting, and even went out of his way to buy a set of purple clay tea tools. 5 new mechanical engineered chairs were placed in the reception area. As soon as Yan Zhaoga saw them, he excitingly sat down in one of them. After getting seated, he pulled out a pair of really small VR goggles from his business bag. This is our company's new flagship product. Unlike many VR goggle systems that require a smartphone to work, it itself has a display system built in. Of course 2K resolution displays are only available to Samsung devices, which our company can't make. Yan Zhaoga handed over the goggles to Yi Qing, and said awkwardly. And just as you see it, within this product, we mainly work with the software side of things as most of the hardware is all outsourced to different companies. High-precision production has always been our weakness, which also includes all kinds of supporting equipment for the VR goggles. Yan Zhaoga also pulled out a small laptop, and showed Yi Qing a segment of a video. The video was probably from some foreign tech convention. Within the sweeping camera, Yi Qing found many world-renowned Goliaths within the convention halls. The camera stopped at a booth that was filled with people. Within the booth were several futuristic circular treadmills. A foreign national held onto some motion sensor gun, wore a set of VR glasses, and was standing there on the treadmill. From his movements, it was quite clear he was playing some kind of shooting game. It was just that no matter which way he walked, the treadmill below was immediately able to match him, letting him walk on what felt like unlimited solid ground but was actually limited. This is the all-directional treadmill, currently a very popular set of VR equipment. Seeing the video finish, Yan Zhaoga explained. This all-directional treadmill can be said to be ahead of its time already, but its faults are also quite clear, only able to be used for exercise and to play some VR shooters. But the chair your company made is completely different. Not only is it tiers above and beyond the all-directional treadmill, its VR compatibility is only a convenience. Even if it came as a convenience, it can still support an unlimited number of VR and normal computer games. As long as it's a sitting game like race cars, boating, flying, and aerial combat games, all are possibilities. Furthermore, if many VR experience video streams were to include your company's mechanical engineered chairs, then the experience would simply be unimaginable. Hearing all of this, Yi Qing was somewhat already lost in the sea of praises. What Yan Zhaoga said was all true. What's more was that Yi Qing wasn't fluent in any programming language at all, so all those games that Yan Zhaoga mentioned, there was no way for Yi Qing to develop any of them. Hence we want to cooperate with your company. Software development is our strength, so we would like to do all the software development for the mechanical engineered chairs. Yan Zhaoga looked at Yi Qing with anticipation. We can help your company's mechanical engineered chairs develop a set of unique gaming experiences and VR usages to further expand your chair's client base. Your company doesn't need to spend any money or make any changes to the chair. In this kind of win-win situation, as soon as we're able to develop a few new games for the VR goggles and chairs, then we can easily increase our product sale by several folds. The mechanical engineered chair, in just a few days showed off its incomparable strength, even idiots could tell how popular they actually are. Having heard Yan Zhaoga's complete pitch, Yi Qing sunk into deep thought. It definitely sounded like a win-win cooperation. Yi Qing, without giving up anything, was able to reach more clients with his product. Illusion Corporation, on the other hand, was able to use their strengths to develop a new set of software to increase the sales of their VR goggles and equipment. Cooperation can happen, if they are really sincere about it. Of course, a cooperation discussion wasn't as simple as this. For example, as by Yan Zhaoga's suggestion, they could engrave a small logo on top of the chairs, to display their company's contribution to the software used within the chairs. This kind of practice was just those chip makers sticking a small sticker on laptops to indicate what CPU was actually inside. Yi Qing, with no real reason to reject, agreed to engrave their company's logo only if they were to set up a program exchange site for the chairs. After all, these mechanical engineered chairs, apart from the VR side, still had many other selling points. However, all these selling points all needed a set of movement instructions to activate, hence building a site, and letting the clients share their programs, naturally was a convenience for everyone. Them being able to develop complete games, naturally meant they could make some websites. With only this request, Yan Zhaoge happily agreed. After discussing the details of several other points, and getting set on the initial details, Yan Zhaoge insisted for Yi Qing to come up with a draft contract, for both parties to sign. Yi Qing, scratching his head, thinking for a really long time, could only call Huaxing Heavy Industries Li Huaxing for a lawyer recommendation. Li Huaxing had his own legal department, which had several professional lawyers on full-time payroll. Receiving Yi Qing's call, Li Huaxing refreshingly lent out his legal department's overseer. Half an hour later, a senior partner of Zhongyun Inghan law firm and a chief counselor of Huaxing Heavy Industries legal department, happily joined in Yi Qing and Yan Zhaoge's conversation. The beautiful female secretary that Yan Zhaoge brought with him, although she was also a qualified lawyer, she just wasn't as qualified as a law firm partner. Having discussed the terms of the cooperation for over an hour, and finally signing the contract, Yi Qing naturally invited them out for lunch. No need, we've still got a bunch of other things to sort out back home. Yan Zhaoge's smile was very rigid. Probably because the law firm partner left him in a completely defensive position during the whole discussion. Using tea to replace liquor to cheer for a happy collaboration, Yan Zhaoge praised the law firm partner, and said he would definitely bring a much more qualified lawyer the next time he came. While driving Yan Zhaoge to the airport, Yi Qing got a call from Daodu. "Did you see the message I left you last night?" Yi Qing placed the phone on his shoulder, and drove with his head sideways. The Lagonda had built-in Bluetooth functionality, it was just that Yi Qing hadn't gotten used to all the functionalities of these super luxury cars, hence his old habits from driving the minivan surfaced. Saw it in the morning. Daodu didn't know how to put it, but Big Brother Yi being able to buy those two big pieces of equipment, equals massively helping out that public general manager from the main branch. Yeah, coincidentally I'm really in need of those two pieces of equipment. I was searching for them everywhere, but who would have thought our Zhongyun would actually have them? Yi Qing commented with his head slanted. Did you tell uncle about this yet? Not yet, Big Brother Yi, I just don't know how to tell him. Just tell him that you have a friend who's in need of those two pieces of equipment. What's so difficult about that? Then. Big Brother Yi, I'll tell him now. Daodu quietly asked. Go, if possible, I want to see them in the afternoon.